Ameren made a $6 billion profit last year, but instead of having them use some of that profit on infrastructure and building more power plants, we're going to allow them to start charging you for energy you've never even seen yet. That's working for that corporation. That's not working for the people.
The point is so that you always have in the back of your mind a particular class that's a protected class that you can't say certain things about. And then what happens is... Hey everybody, welcome back to Take on the Lake with Lake Expo. I'm Nathan Bechtel. Thanks so much for joining us. Today in the studio, we have Camden County Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton. Ike, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And we've been having to reschedule this one for a little bit, but thanks for your perseverance and willingness to jump in here and talk a little bit. I have not actually had you on the show, but for several reasons, now is as good a time as any, or maybe a better time. So, you came to Camden. You've been in Camden County a long time, but you came into this role as presiding commissioner in Camden County. I don't remember what year that was.
I took office in 22.
Okay. Yep, 2022. Why'd you run for commissioner?
Some of my friends got together and lied to me about it. No, I'm just kidding. I was encouraged. I was asked to. I've been involved in politics in one way or another for, if not certainly the Tea Party movement, but before the Tea Party movement, I was involved with things and learning and figuring out where exactly in it all I wanted to be. And when my friends did come to me and ask me to do it, I thought, well, yeah, I'll do that. I had tried state representative when I was in the Tea Party movement when I was living down in Lebanon, and actually ran against Diane Franklin here in this district, and that was a little tough, but that's okay. But I got involved there in school board down in Lebanon, and I'll be honest, I wasn't as excited about school board as state representative. And then presiding commissioner presented itself, and I had a lot of good support, so I went for it. Yeah,
well, and you did get a lot of support. It seems like, and you know, there's been Camden County's commissioner scene has had an interesting journey. I don't even know where you start. Not that we're going to do a long history of Camden County commissioners, but you know, I definitely think it seems like the commission is effective somewhat right now from where I'm standing, but maybe you can give me a better assessment. Do you feel like the commission is working, like that it's effective, it's able to accomplish some important things for the county? Like, I don't know, you look back on 4 years now, how do you think it's gone?
I think we've done a lot of good things. I think we have reinstalled a sense of transparency and a reality of transparency. I think we are one of the only elected bodies that anybody can come to at any time. And if you're not on the agenda at the end of the agenda cycle, I ask, is there anybody here that would like to bring something up before the commission that is not otherwise on the agenda? That's almost the exact words I use because I want that interaction with people. I want the people to know what their government is doing. I don't hide anything. The only things we worry about closed session are, ongoing legal issues that we can't expose our strategy and personnel issues where you don't want, people's names and what's going on out there. But other than that, we keep everything as open as we can, and we encourage that. The Road and Bridge Department was a very big deal. This last budget cycle, I thought at first they just weren't throwing any money at it, and for whatever reason they were keeping a bunch of money on hand. And I come to find out during this last budget cycle that for decades the Road and Bridge Department has been neglected. And I know that by talking to the people, that is probably, if not their second top issue, it's tied with the Sheriff's Department. Right. It's their very top issue. So I think that, and the commissioners used to be road commissioners. That's what they used to be.
Road judges.
Exactly right. Yeah, road judges. That's right. That's right. There is very little, in my opinion, that government should be involved in, but infrastructure is one of those big things. And if we're not doing the infrastructure well, then I'm not sure why we're doing the rest of what we do.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. Maybe just for folks that are listening, I know I had to kind of go through, just in this job years ago, a learning curve on what's the difference between a commissioner and a mayor. Well, like I never really, and as time went on, I learned a lot that the commissioners originally were the county. A lot of the work of the county really was kind of roads and justice. I mean, those were kind of the two pieces. So what's a commissioner's role supposed to be in that? What are you guys supposed to be doing?
Well, certainly we take care of that infrastructure. Now, in Camden County, a first-class county without a charter form of government, the commission is responsible for the Road and Bridge Department, the Health Department, the Planning and Zoning Department, the maintenance of all the buildings. We have payroll, we have human resources under us, and we have the legal team under us. So I don't think I've left anybody out, but there's an awful lot of responsibility for the three commissioners. And it's good to have the three commissioners, but one of the problems with the sunset law or the open meetings law is we cannot, the two of us, any two commissioners at any time, certainly not the three of us,
can't talk together.
We can't talk to each other.
Because that's the quorum.
Yes, that's exactly right.
You only have three commissioners.
Yes.
And, Missouri law basically requires you to not have a quorum of elected officials in a particular elected official body without a formal meeting called. And
that's exactly
if you're going to have a formal meeting, you have to put out an agenda before and all this stuff. So, that's an interesting point. Literally, two commissioners are not supposed to talk to each other.
We're not supposed to talk about county business.
Right.
And that is a very tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And then to figure out, well, what is a ministerial duty, something we do every day, versus what is otherwise. And so, I mean...
because you could talk to them about something that you've already are supposed to be doing, and hey, are you handling that, or are you going to call them?
One of the big things is if we're not spending money and we're not making some decisions, signing contracts, anything like that. But if somebody in the first district calls and says, "Hey, we need a little extra attention to such and such road," maybe the commissioner will come to me and say, "Hey, I'm going to have Pat do X, Y, Z on such and such road, just so I know what's going on, and I'll agree with that or whatever. We'll talk about it. We'll get it figured out." And those are something that's just a daily plan.
Right.
But if we were to say, well, we want to buy a new $300,000 truck and it's not already in the budget. Okay, we got to sit down and talk about that now.
Right.
I'll give you a good example if you don't care.
Sure.
So the previous commission decided arbitrarily that a road that nobody really thought was a road, Gravelgate I'm talking about here, they decided it was a road. They told Road and Bridge Department to go put tons of rock on it and do all this work across the people's piece of property. And I know you're familiar with what happened after that. Well, there was a real misunderstanding as to whether it was a road or not.
Right.
So we had something very similar happen. There was a road that came down through a person's property and then terminated at the front door of another person's property. Now, we had or had not been maintaining that little last section of the road for several years, but we did kind of maintain the upper portion.
Okay.
And that'll happen sometimes. I mean, if the citizen who says, "Hey, I got a little blade and I'll deal with this," we might leave it alone and let local folks handle it, right? Well, these folks put a bunch of gravel in that road and then they tried to prevent their neighbors from being able to come down through it. Well, since there was some question as to whether it was really a road or not 100% and where our part ended, I put a meeting together of all of the folks that lived out there, the Road and Bridge Department, and we had a public meeting about it. Now, the one side did not show up. Now, you can't make anybody show up, but you give them the opportunity for that time to figure things out. So we went through our entire processes. We determined that it was a county road, and we advised those neighbors that they either need to let their folks come on through there, or your neighbors come through and use that road, or we're going to have to come down and we're going to blade the road all the way through their parking lot and the whole 9 yards. So it got worked out, but we had a public meeting about it.
Right.
And in the end, nobody was, even if they were a little upset, you're not going to please everybody. And that was one of the biggest. So that's an example. And you got to now, if it came in and said, "Yep, we know that's a road, we just haven't bladed it for last year," or whatever, go out and do it, because we know it's a road and there's no controversy there. So I like being that transparency. I think what we also have found is there's been some little issues here and there. Money was being spent on things that maybe it didn't necessarily need to be spent on. So we started oversight. That is one of the biggest, the commissioner's biggest job, I believe, is oversight of what else is going on. Now, that lends its own problems because we have no authority over any of the other elected officials.
Well, right, because you have a county clerk who's an elected official, and they don't answer to you, right? No. The sheriff is elected official, doesn't answer to you, right?
Prosecutor, assessor, all of that stuff.
So those are all in terms of their authority, none of them answers to one another, but you all kind of have to work together. You're all under one county budget.
Yes. And that winds up being the sticking point is the money, right? And I don't know of any real, like anybody's, oh, you guys shouldn't have spent any money on that or shouldn't have spent any. We've made a couple of capital purchases, and the other elected officials, they won't say anything, I don't think, publicly or in an email probably, but I do know the last building that we purchased, there were 4 or 5 of them sitting in the back, and I said, are you okay with this? You agree with this? You agree? And they're all in agreement with what we did. So not that they had to be, but I'd like to have those other folks on board too, because they're a part of it too. They're the elected officials. So yeah, we're supposed to work together in those things. And I'll tell you what, I think what I have discovered is if you go along with what that, I call them the bureaucracy, because I think the people know that they have to exist, but they don't, the people don't. I mean, what do the people get out of the treasurer? Okay, we have to go give the treasurer our tax dollars, right? What do they get out of the assessor? You know, what do they get out of the treasurer? So the people don't really get anything from that. Recorder of deeds, that's a little different. Marriage licensing, but a lot of those functions, they have to exist. Otherwise, we couldn't do the rest of it, right?
Right.
So
Auditor.
they have to be there. And there are some statutory guidelines that we have to provide. But the big thing is, for instance, this particular last budget cycle, if the commission would have sat back and said, okay, we're going to go ahead and drop from $15 million road and bridge budget down to the $7 million that you recommend, and we're going to let you cut the sheriff's department by $3 million, and we would have signed it on the line, everybody would have been happy. It would have been a great thing. But we're not going to just go along to get along.
Right.
We found out what is happening with the people's money and where the people's money was supposed to be going according to the votes that the people
the sales tax.
That's exactly right. So I think
for folks that aren't familiar with that issue, basically it was discovered that there was a sales tax that county taxpayers approved back in, was this 08? I'm not forgetting
there was
the year.
07 sales tax came into play in 08. Yep.
And then that was supposed to at least mostly go towards road and bridge. That was, I think,
and the sheriff's department. That's correct.
And law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
And that was statutory. Like when voters approved it, the language on it said that would be what it would go towards.
That's exactly right.
But then what you guys found was that
it wasn't happening.
That wasn't getting earmarked specifically to go.
There was a very small chunk
slushing around.
There was a very small chunk because it said in there also employee retention.
Oh, okay.
Road and bridge, sheriff's department, law enforcement, and employee retention. Well, they gave on an average the road and bridge department about 10% of that or less. The sheriff's department got anywhere from 30 to 50% of that through the years, and all the rest of it got put into a slush fund.
Yep.
Or
because everything is employee retention, right?
Well, right, yes, exactly. So then that got sprinkled out throughout the rest of the county and used as general revenue.
It's always hard to trace back how that even happens sometimes. I mean, sometimes you could go find minutes and stuff, I guess. But, I know that, again, not to get way in the weeds on this topic, but I know like with this one, at least my remembrance of what happened, there was Jimmy, the auditor, was like, well, this is just how it was done when I took office. Yeah. Like that was I'm just handing you the way it was being done.
That's right.
And at some point, then somebody just has to go, well, we're not going to do that way anymore.
That's exactly
and have
right.
a reason for it.
And we did find that stuff. We even found minutes of the commission where the tax, I don't remember if it was the 07 or maybe it was the use tax. I think it was the use tax, was dedicated fully toward road and bridge. And that blew our mind when we found that because it wasn't being done. So, and part of that is the vigilance of the commission, making sure that these things happen. And from what I understand, a lot of commissions, other than pay these guys that, and this is going to be that, a lot of the other commissions were kind of hand off when it came to the budget.
Sure.
And we do have in our first class county, the auditor is the chief budget officer. That is in statute. So I wanted to know everything that was going on, but a lot of that was for him to compile, put together, figure it out, and we'll approve it. So, but that was always so. When you bring those things up, that's a little bit of a sticky issue when it comes to the administration building because now they don't have that money just laying around to do whatever with.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so that one has been. I don't know if I'll say resolved. I mean, I don't know if the conversation is over on that one, but that's been changed. We'll say that. And and the road and bridge has more money
Yes.
going to it, than it did.
Yep, we're at almost 13 million right now,
Okay.
which is still about 3 million at least shy from what we have demonstrated they should have been getting all along.
So then zoom out, because some of this is very for folks.
I don't want to get into the weeds.
Yeah, I don't want to get too
apologize.
much in the weeds. No, it's all right. I find it interesting, and I think some people do. But I think I was just thinking, and actually you said this earlier, and you said this at a meeting I was at last year, that I think generally when people think about their county, if they know what county they live in, most people do, I think.
There's some of that.
Yeah. Then the most that they're probably thinking about that they would want from the county is for the roads. They know I'm drive on county road so and so, right?
Mm-hmm,
So they would want the roads to be in good shape, and they might think of, oh well, there's a county sheriff, and so there's law enforcement, and I want for whatever the sheriff's supposed to do versus the local police department, which, by the way, the answer to that is not everything is under the jurisdiction of a local police department, right? There's a lot of county and not a lot of city, especially around here.
Sure.
So they would think, well, I would like for the justice system to work. Arrest the bad guys, make sure, that you protect citizens to be able to do the normal life stuff they want to do.
Sure.
So on those two things, and we've talked already on some of this, but maybe just give me a kind of a broad brushes. How do you feel like the county's doing? What score or grade would you give the county on infrastructure, like transportation, roads basically, and justice?
Well, I'm going to give the operators of our road and bridge department at least a 9. I never give anybody a 10 because I don't even deserve a 10. There's always room for improvement, right? But they do an incredible job with just a little bit of stuff. And if we were to provide the proper amount of resources that they could truly use, our roads would be second to none, because they're that good at people working on their stuff. They just need the resources to do it. The sheriff's department, I know, has a lot of good dedicated people, and so do the prosecutor's office. So we'll call that the justice system. But I think we have some issues going on in the county right now. Right, exactly. I hope that can get resolved, because that's a very, very big deal. And although I try to I'm there to talk to anybody, talk through anything they want to, but it's not my authority to meddle in it.
Right. I mean, those are two other elected officials, and prosecutor and sheriff, and they have their own offices that they have to run, and they have to work with various other offices the way they have to do it. Right?
That is exactly correct. Yeah. The only thing that I would maybe say about any of that is for the citizens to just pay a little closer attention to everything that's actually happening. Don't just look at the fact that Road and Bridge got $5 million for asphalt. That's just an example. Find out where it's being spent. Or did we actually spend that $5 million on asphalt? Were we able to spend the $5 million on asphalt? Sheriff and prosecutor, you get $1 million, and the sheriff's got a $15 million budget. What do they spend that money on? And take a little bit deeper look at that. And be more involved and conscious of what's going on there. Make sure that each office holder is a good steward of your funds, because once the commission authorizes the funds, we really have no say-so over what they spend it on.
Oh, sure. Right.
So, and that's another thing we've done. We've kind of taken a lot of these miscellaneous, like you might have, $10,000 sitting in a miscellaneous line. Well, what is that for? Anything you want? Yeah, let's pare that down. Let's get that down to about 2,000, because things happen that you're not going to be, you don't know what's going to happen throughout the year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the average citizen is not like they know they should care how the prosecutor's office spent that $5 million or whatever, office spent that amount of money. They have their grocery budget to worry about, right? So that's what they're focused on. And of course, we try to do that as we cover the news. There's only so much we can do with our resources we have in terms of looking into some of those things. So I think, that's a challenge, I think, just in an ongoing way for people to, there's always that gap between, I know I should care about this, but I do not care. Well, I care, but I don't care.
Part of that problem, I think, is I get that, because it's very frustrating. Yeah. And a part of me, look, and as you know, I am not running again for presiding commissioner of Camden County. I'm running for the 6th senatorial district of Missouri. Yep. It doesn't matter what office anybody holds or that I will ever hold. I do not work for the government. I work for the people. I take an oath to the Constitution, because the Constitution is the set of rules that the people have gotten together and said, this is what we want to follow. Right. So I take an oath to that Constitution. I don't take an oath to the people.
Right.
I take an oath to the Constitution to do the best job that I can with what we have. And it's very frustrating to find out that some people don't really want to be that way. They kind of want to work for the government. They, when a citizen comes to them and says, "Hey, can I see how many gallons of fuel you're using?" "Oh, why do you need to know that? What do you want to know?" Or you need to put in a sunshine request, all these other different sorts of things to try to kind of drag your feet on getting in or go around it. That is not the way anybody in government should act at all. It should be, sure, what do you want to know? Let me pull it up as quick as I can. I don't know how quick I can pull that up, but we're going to find that. Let's sit here and talk about it and be open and transparent about it and help folks figure out what the issue is. Where I see an awful lot of people in government dragging their feet, they don't want to talk to the public. They don't really want to get the public involved in the in and outs of what is working or how the works happen. And I think that there's some merit to that, because if you don't know how it works on the inside, and I don't mean it shouldn't be a mystery, but there's an awful lot of layers to doing what we do in government. And some of it's ugly. They say you don't want to see the sausage being made. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, take a look at how that sausage is being made sometimes, because if you sit back and you say, well, this is a crazy system, well, then maybe you can help some of us that want to reform that system reform it, because it does work crazily. There's some, I'm fine with open meeting rules and laws, but again, the fact that we cannot sit and talk to each other, or as we're passing, hey, did you call so-and-so about such and such? We can't talk about a lot of that stuff. So that's very, very frustrating. And from one meeting to the next, you forget about some of the things that went on, and oh, dadgummit, I wanted to bring that up and talk to these guys about it, and you can't. So
do you think Camden County just needs 5 commissioners, and then you would be able to do that, actually?
No.
Seriously, wouldn't that solve that?
Well,
that you could talk to an individual?
Well, you could, but you still couldn't really accomplish much. And then what you do is you'll have 2 of the 5 sit in some little room, and they'll conspire with each other about something against the other 3. I'm telling you that sort of stuff.
So it's frustrating. It's good that it's frustrating.
Yeah, yes. And again, you don't want government to, this is going to sound crazy, but you don't want government to work too fast. Because you don't know what they can wind up doing to you.
No, I think we see that even designed in how the founders of the country even sort of designed certain things.
Yes.
That, it's meant to take a minute
to
get certain things done, and that's a good thing.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So okay, I did want to get to your Senate run. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But one other thing about the county, and you kind of have touched on this, but maybe articulate a little more specifically. What challenges do you see the county faces right now? What are some of the biggest challenges?
Infrastructure.
Okay.
First, before we get into that real quick, because you asked about how the county is running, I also want to give a shout out to Byron Willis over in the assessor's office. He single-handedly took on, I'll say single-handedly, but at least he stepped forward and said, we will do this. And that is the SB 190, the Senior Citizens Tax Freeze. They stepped up and took this thing over. Our former current attorney, Jeff Green, worked with them very, very handedly, and they got a really good plan together, and they're administering that fantastically. So I just want to say thank you to those folks publicly and let them know that I do appreciate what they did with the SB 190, and everybody else should be as well, because they're working really hard at it. I'm sorry, what was that question?
Oh, yeah, it was just challenges facing the county. You mentioned infrastructure, and then you had mentioned money for infrastructure, and then I want to know, what do you think
the buildings are getting old. They have been, quite honestly, neglected for a long time. The Juvenile Justice Center, a part of it was actually falling away from the rest of the building. Now, they got that squared away before I actually got into office. They kind of did something with it, jacked it back up, and they're monitoring that still to see if the footings are not very good or what have you. But the plumbing system in that building was allowed to deteriorate to an ungodly bad position. So we've had to put a lot of money into that. There was a roof job that was was done some years ago that only cost $90,000, and we know why, because it should have cost closer to $300,000, because that's what we wound up spending. What this company did was, in a commercial building, you're required to use metal instead of 2x4s. You're supposed to use metal 2x4s, right? Mm-hmm. And a metal structure. Well, they used wood to replace the metal that had rotted and they cut out. When the company that looked at it, and I'll give shout out to Stiles Roofing, they did an incredible job. They do an incredible job for the county and the taxpayers. When they looked at it, they were very surprised that the roof was actually still on the building. They said the only thing actually keeping it on there is the weight of it. Wow. So, yes, wow, absolutely wow. So we got all that taken care of, but that was a huge chunk of change. Mm-hmm. An elevator is $180,000 to get switched over to the new digital type of stuff. And we're probably shy an elevator right now in the Justice Center. The jail is, we had to do a lot of work on the shower pans that was leaking, and the concrete was starting to get deteriorated from all of that. So we had to clean all that out and have an epoxy put in there. So there's a lot of building structure that we've had to deal with. We're running out of parking space. We're going to have to get some more parking space. We have kind of a plan. There's one building in our way, but we're not willing to pay the money that that individual wants for the building. So we're going to have to wait and see if we can't get that a little bit cheaper. If not, we'll just have to do what we got to do around them, you know. So parking is going to be a big problem, especially for court days. There is not as secure. I mean, we make do, but I would like to have a more secure facility for the prosecutor's office to be able to park their cars and employees coming back and forth. They work a lot of late nights, and that can maybe get a little scary for them sometimes, you know. So those are going to be some of the challenges going forward. And budget is going to be a big challenge. When I took office, there was probably about $20 million just floating around in the budget. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that sounds great. I'd love to have $20 million floating around in my budget too. But you know what? To me, if you have that much money sitting around in the budget, then you're taking too much from the people. So you need to spend it. You're squandering it, and you're just holding on to it. So that's how Road and Bridge got pumped up for a long time. And yes, we have gotten rid of that. I'm not going to say reserve, because we have $6 million in CDs in reserve for emergency purposes. And if we ever get to the point where we're in such bad shape that we have to burn those reserves, there's an awful lot of issues going on in the world that's going to cause a lot more problems than just that. Okay. So is it nice to have a little bit of a cushion? Yeah, it'd be nice to have maybe a $5 million operating cushion. I've heard some people say if they get elected this next cycle, they want a $25 million cushion. I'm like, oh my God, how much money do you want to take from the people? I
mean, what they mean by that is that the potential, based on what they think they might spend, to have a $25 million surplus, basically? Is that what that means?
Yes, and just have that much money sitting in the budget.
Annual revenues, more or less? Do you remember offhand? I just put you on the spot.
No. We brought in about 39, spent about 39, brought in 42. Million for those operating. Now, the whole budget's closer to 90 million, but that's a lot of pass-through stuff that we don't have anything to do with.
Okay, right.
80 million, but we don't have. But what we have to deal with
around 40.
Yeah. So we brought in under that, brought in over that and spent a little bit under that. So I like a little bit of a tighter budget like that. Now, again, would it be nice to maybe have that $5 million cushion just sitting there in case something pops up, you know, and we got to deal with it? Fine. But $25 million? I think that's better in the taxpayer's pocket, not the county.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if it's something that taxpayers have approved in terms of taxes, then they would expect you to put it to work in ways that benefit them.
But if it's just sitting there and just, look at that. We got $25 million in our account. Ain't that great? You're not doing anything with it. You're not helping the people if you're doing that.
Right.
So
good point. You've made a little bit of a reputation for yourself as a bit of a firebrand, a little bit.
I might have poked my finger in the eye of government once or twice.
You're not afraid to go toe to toe with various agencies.
That's right.
Let's talk then about. So that's been the case in multiple different instances with the ATF, with Highway Patrol. You're looking at a state Senate run now. How do you feel like that works for you, that reputation or that disposition? I don't think that's just been something you've put on as county commissioner. I assume that reflects kind of who you are, what you believe. So how do you see that playing out if you win the state Senate election? Which, by the way, I haven't even checked in to see if you have I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 other people.
There 4 or 5 other people.
Yeah.
Wow, I shouldn't have admitted that.
That's okay. That's okay. That's all right.
I forgot to check who all even was
Just
running
worry about the
right
local
now.
guy, and it'll be okay.
That's right. So how does that play itself out?
I hope and pray that the folks will step up. You know, an awful lot of candidates and politicians talk about, I'm going to protect this for you, and I'm going to do that for you, and all these neat, fun things. And then when you get into office, oh, well, I don't know if we can really do it that way, or that's kind of tough, you know, and oh, we tried, darn it. And that's all hogwash. We need to try a whole lot harder, because the number one, in my opinion, for any elected office holder, is we all take an oath to the Constitution, as I said a little earlier. And the very first thing that is our responsibility is to ensure that your rights are protected. Mm-hmm. That's the number one thing. Because if you don't have your rights being protected, then you can't do the rest of the stuff and live in liberty and freedom like you should. So again, I work for the people, not the government. And I'll be in the government, but I'm still going to be working for the people. And I intend on mostly keeping an eye on what other legislators are doing and what other laws they're trying to pass that very well may either pick your pocket or break your leg through some sort of taking your liberties away. And I have a track record to prove that I'll do that. It's not just something that I'm going to say. If I tell you I'm going to protect your Second Amendment rights, I might go down the tubes, but I'm going to be protecting your Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, all of them. You know, I just pray that my track record will help show that to folks, and they'll give me the opportunity.
You've, I'm sure, watched state politics in Missouri and how they play themselves out. And I mean, the legislature has developed a bit of a reputation in recent years for being rather dysfunctional at certain times. And I have never really quite known who's to blame for that, because it depending on who you ask, is, you know, who the other one gets blamed. Mm-hmm. But it seems like a lot of times some of that, what's called dysfunction, again, we could even debate that term. Sure. But some of these stalemates, some of the things that have happened in recent years have come from people that form maybe small caucuses, or decide that they're going to say no to a thing, or they're going to filibuster the living daylights out of something because they believe in something in a lot of ways that you're talking. And so that is a really long preface to a question of, it really is kind of the same question I'm asking, but how do you get to a place where you have to operate within a Senate body, which is a small body even compared to the House of Representatives, and be effective if your concern is probably a lot of what they want to try to do, I'm going to have to end up standing against. Now, maybe you don't think that way. Maybe you think that they're mostly everything's hunky-dory.
Oh, no. I think you're going right down.
Just setting you up for that. Yeah. So how can you be effective as one senator who goes, nope, I'm not going to let that happen? How do you do that? Because I feel like we've seen that, and that's where I'm trying to go.
I think one of the first questions is you have to ask yourself, what is effective? Is effective meaning you're passing a lot of laws, or is effective meaning that you're passing some good stuff, but you're trying to prevent all of the bad stuff that's happening? And I think being effective is stopping an awful lot of the bad stuff that is happening. And I've been doing that for a long number of years, going to Jefferson City and testifying against things and lobbying against various things. One of the bigger problems you have in Jefferson City is we have it's unfortunate, but it is the reality of politics. And money, unfortunately, is a reality of politics. And the biggest problem with that is, for my case, for instance, I'm going to have to get every candidate has to get their name out and their word out and their platform out. Well, how do you do that? You have to have money to pay for advertising, to hire staff and all this. So where do you get that money? Well, an awful lot of times, big corporations are handing out money to these people that they know are going to work with them.
Yeah, vote for the thing. They already have a bill that they're trying to get through, and they expect your vote.
There you go.
I mean, we know how this works.
Therein lies the problem. Anybody can donate to me that they want to, but they need to understand that unless it is a liberty issue and it's protecting individual rights and operating within a function of what government is supposed to be doing, I'm probably not going to be your guy. I'm not going to be the person that's going to come up with, oh, I want this tax break for this corporation, or we need to have something better over here, or hey, Ameren made a $6 billion profit last year, but instead of having them use some of that profit on infrastructure and building more power plants, we're going to allow them to start charging you for energy you've never even seen yet so that they can now start investing that into other power plants. That's working for that corporation. That's not working for the people. And a lot of other things like that you hear all the time. If everybody just puts in LED lights, and your electric bills are good. My electric bill has never gone down, my friend, until I turn everything off. Right. So that is how you have to be able to operate. So, and trying to make sure, how am I going to be effective? Try to make sure that government is not doing so many things that they need to do that they shouldn't be doing to begin with. Government has a function, and that's it. You shouldn't get outside of that box. Paying attention to the Constitution is a very, very big thing, and educating folks on what that actually means, because we see a lot of the bad things that have been happening is because they've been ignoring the Constitution. The only caveat I'll say to all of that is the people that want small government, that want lower taxes, that want more liberty, must stand up and become more involved, because it doesn't take a whole bunch of money to be able to accomplish an elective goal, but it does take an awful lot of votes. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to reach those folks to let them know that this is the best person to vote for. And the grassroots, your average everyday person like me and you, we need to be more involved with what's happening and make sure that we're paying attention to what's going on. And when we see this dirty stuff going on, boot them out of office. We don't have to wait for term limits. I am not a term limit guy, because it's our responsibility. For a representative, every 2 years, you throw them out. For a senator, every 4 years, you throw them out if they're not doing a good job. And incumbency is a very, very powerful thing that office holders have. And the only way to break that is by the people being involved and paying attention to what's happening.
So you're looking at Jeff City, and if you're elected state senator, you would, by the way, not be the first Ike Skelton state senator in Missouri, which is kind of
I guess that's right.
Thing to say. That's kind of interesting. So what are some things that you would like to focus on? If you could go up there, which I know I have not served in public office, but my assumption is that probably even if you're a realist, you go to Jeff City or whatever place that you're going to be, elected to go serve in, with a set of things that you'd like to do, and then you get there and you get in the midst of it and go, oh, well, now I have to adjust my expectations a little bit because I've met some people and learned some things, and I allow for that. Like, again, you don't know a thing until you're in the thing, right? Generally. So, but what are things that if you could go up and you could?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say I sat here and I said, by golly, we're going to get rid of these voting machines, and that's the way it's going to be. And I'm running for, let's say, Secretary of State. Let's say I'm running for Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like these voting machines. We need paper ballots and all that, and I'm going to get rid of those. Then you get up there and say, oh, well, we're actually going to have to pass a law to make that happen. Shouldn't you have known that going in?
Right.
You should have known that going in, right? So for me, I don't have a great big agenda that I'm going to take to Jefferson City. As a matter of fact, the first year, I probably won't file a single bill. I want to observe what's going on. I want to see what's happening. And I want to make sure that things that shouldn't be happening are not happening. So if I do have any expectations, that's probably one of my bigger expectations, is to not be a disruptor, but to be that voice for the people. That, there's another thing that drives me crazy. Again, I've been doing this lobbying stuff in Jefferson City for a long time. And I don't know when it actually started occurring, but eventually a few of the individuals would start engaging with me. Because I'm just an average citizen.
Right.
9 times out of 10, when you go sit at one of those things and you tell everybody how you feel about something and you bring up this law or whatever, they just look at you. Any questions for this witness? No, we don't want to say nothing to them. Okay, and you go sit back down. It's almost like they really don't care to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they really want much of the public up there. They'll tell you they do, but I don't think a lot of them really do.
Well, and that goes to where I think a lot of people, if you follow, I don't know, national, but even really state level politics much at all, you get jaded kind of fast because you start to think that I have a sense that these people already know how they're going to vote on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe they've already been told how they're going to vote on this. That's the sense that I get out of a lot of Jeff City politics is that you get told what you're going to vote and the threats are real. I mean, we've seen the threats handed down from leadership in Jeff City. Now, some of them are kind of unbelievably petty and wild. And
taking their parking
your parking spaces away and like some of the, but I mean, the whole package of potential repercussions if you don't vote the way leadership says to vote, man, that I think starts to make some people go. And then like with what you're saying about you go up there, you actually testify on a thing and it's like, nope, no questions. And you kind of go, okay, well, I mean, I guess you don't have to have any questions, but it does make one wonder whether you really have any questions at all about anything, or whether you just kind of already are, you've been given a list of what you're going to vote on these things, of what the potential objections are, and how we already took care of those with such and such amendment. So you're voting yes on this, right?
Yeah, and I also believe that they've either been told or conditioned to rely on certain lobbyists for information, such as let's say there was an issue pertaining to the growing of corn, and I learned about fertilizers or something that was used, and I go up and I testify against or for something. Well, the Corn Growers Association is going to come right up against me, and maybe we're at odds. They're not going to ask me a question. But that Corn Growers Association guy, because he's the perceived expert, they'll ask him a bunch of questions. I want to know his point of view and all these sorts of things. So I find that a little bit disingenuous. A lot of us out here on the street are just as smart as those guys are, and we probably know something that they don't want you to know. And that's what we're here trying to expose. So you mentioned leadership, and that is a very serious problem. And that is exactly what happened. And if you want to be on a particular committee, I would like to probably be on a general laws or something to do with criminal justice, because I think we need a lot of reform in the criminal justice system. But if I stick my nose out on something that they don't want me talking about, I might get pulled from that committee. Right. And that is a very true but petty retaliatory action that they can do. Now, I don't want to get into it real deep, but the leadership process, especially in the House, is already figured out 3 or 4 cycles before it ever gets there. And that is something that somehow has got to be broken. But one of the things that contributes to that is the money that you can hand out. So if you're a second-term state representative and you might want to get into leadership, if you don't have a bunch of money to put into other people's campaign coffers to get their vote, you're probably not going to get the vote on the House floor to be the Senate or maybe the floor majority leader or something, and then you move up to the pro tem, and then you wind up being the speaker, So that is a problem. There's money in that too. And as ugly as it is a reality because of what I said earlier. If I want to stay in office, I have to have some money to be able to go out there and try to get it, right? And if the people that you're standing there and fighting for will not help you, then you're probably not going to get there. And those people that are being backed by the corporations will. And then you're now going to have the government that you don't really want to have.
I'll just ask this a little bit different way, and then I'll let you go. We'll wrap up. But when you look at what's coming out of Jeff City, you said, and this is probably wise, you're not going to go there with a particular agenda to try to get a particular thing passed. I guess that takes one less punishment away from you. That hang over your head. I'm not going to pass your bill. I don't have any bills. So
exactly right. Yeah.
But when you see things that are coming out of Jeff City, do any things really bother you, or go the other way? Are there any things where you go, man, that's actually, I've been really impressed with that. I've liked what I've seen coming out of there. That's kind of part of that question then too is Missouri's makeup of tax, like the tax picture in Missouri. Again, not that you have to go there and try to file a bill on that, but that's a fairly frequently discussed topic is the property tax, the personal property tax, the Missouri sales tax, but the income tax, right? Yes. And that whole picture, are there any things in there where you're like, oh man, that one's got to go, or actually we should do more of that, or So that's two questions. Sorry for asking two questions.
No, yeah. Well, the tax issue when it comes to Missouri is an incredibly big and complicated problem, right? I love the idea of getting rid of the income tax, but I like maybe even more getting rid of the property tax and the personal property tax. Well, if you get rid of the property taxes, you're going to have to figure out how to fund your schools. You get personal property, you're going to have to figure out how to fund schools, your library, or your libraries, your fire departments, all these other different sorts of things.
Right.
So, and I talk about this otherwise. This is where the people are going to have to sit down and prioritize what we want to do with the money that we have. As much as I like smallest government with the least amount of spending, you still have to spend money.
Right.
And let's talk about the person that is working over here in the county in the in the assessor's office. Well, they need to make a living. You know, you're not going to have somebody just come to work for the county. Oh, we'll give you $25,000 a year. Have a nice day.
Right.
You gotta be able to pay a wage that people can live on and it works out and everything and make that happen. So you have to think about those wages. A copier that you buy right here costs probably just as much for the government, maybe even a little bit more because they know it's the government, or the government has some rule to where it has to have this capability but can't have that capability. So now my printer is going to cost more than your printer, but regardless. So we have to worry about those priorities. But my biggest concern are these people that talk about eliminating one tax or another and not having a really thought out process of what you're going to do with that lost revenue. Now, the first thing at the state level I think we need to do is look at cutting. Because if you're going to try to eliminate a tax base and revenue, the first thing you need to be talking about is where we're going to cut some funds out of the budget and maybe even cut some departments. I would like to see the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education severely reduced. I would really like to get them down to a part where they figure out who gets the money that the taxpayers send in, and all the curriculum and everything else maybe just handles at the local level. If you want to have some standards at the state that says you have to have, by the time you graduate high school, you have to have 5 classes of math, 3 classes of this. You want to set up some standards like that? Yeah, okay, maybe. And I'm not getting into the weeds with all that, but that's something I want. But you have to cut spending first. And then you can start talking about reducing the revenue, because government is not going to do without, and they almost can't, right? You have to fund what you've got going on.
Sure.
So maybe look at getting rid of some of what you have going on and pare down where you really want to put those funds at. Do we really have a huge crime problem in mid-Missouri? I don't really think there is. A lot of drug issues.
Right.
And we won't get into those weeds, but is there a lot of theft and murders? So why are we spending so much extra money trying to get law enforcement pumped up? And politicians will use that. Oh, crime is through the roof. We need to get more money out to this and more money out to that. Or this issue is emerging. We need to put money out there. Things that bothered me is the way they talk about taxes. And this one about the income tax right now, my friends, it's a hoax. I don't know how much you've looked into it yourself, but they talk about eliminating the income tax, and that's all they'll tell you. What they're not really telling you is that if we pass this thing that's going to potentially wind up on the ballot, for at least 3 years, the Hancock Amendment will be suspended.
Yeah, that gives them the ability to raise the sales tax.
As however they want to whatever they think it needs to be to offset the income tax. Well, that sounds really good to maybe some people. But let me ask you something. Your average family that might have a $65,000 a year income with a couple of kids, how much income tax do you really think they pay?
Right.
It's pretty low.
Right.
But you know what? They pay a lot in sales tax when they go by. That's right. They consume. They have to have haircuts. They have to have their cars worked on, the whole 9 yards. And they haven't even talked in this bill about what services that don't get taxed today that they're going to want to tax in the future. And they're not even telling you what those are.
Right.
So I want to see taxes eliminated, but we need to be genuine about it, not just throw out talking points to get people's votes and people's attention. It's got to be something real. It's got to be something meaningful, and it's got to start with cutting government first.
Great answer. So then part A of my question was, is there anything, well, let's go with this.
Okay, anything good coming out?
Anything good coming out of Jeff?
Not much. I'll be honest with you, not much. I think they just came up with a truth in sentencing type of bill, so that if you somebody's committed murder and you give them 25 years to life, well, maybe they're actually going to serve that 20 years. And if they're good, they're doing good and they repent and they're turning around their life, maybe you give them, you let them out in that 20 years according to your parole board, whatever. But if you give somebody 20 years to life and you kick them out in 5 or 10, especially depending on the crime, not to get too deep into the weeds, but we need to look at a lot of different sentencing on a lot of different things and how we operate, because the Department of Corrections is running out of space in the state of Missouri. And I don't want to see building new prisons. I want to see figuring out how to get people out of prison and get them back into productive life if they're capable of doing that, instead of just throwing them away to rot, So that was a good thing that came out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's a whole bunch of good stuff come out. I'll be honest with you. They try some decent things, but then they cobble it together in these omnibus bills, and that's unconstitutional. House or Senate Bill 3 is one of the most horrible pieces of legislation they've done in not too recent time. That's the one that gave the Chiefs this big tax break and other sports tax break. And then, of course, they threw in property tax, real estate tax deal, and all of that boon. So it wound up just being a mess.
Missouri, when you say unconstitutional, just for folks who are listening, Missouri Constitution actually requires bills to be about the thing that they're about.
Yes, that's exactly right. Single subject.
The subject has to basically state what this bill is about, and the bill actually has to be about that thing. It's supposed to prevent them taking 18 different bills and scabbing them all together into this kind of nasty thing. And then and then now you've got the votes from the 18 different people and their co-sponsors who filed those, and then you get a whole big old thing passed that you would never know what it was even. That's the idea there. But your point is, and I've seen this happen too, is that somehow they just still sometimes, it seems like, do it anyways. Maybe, they turn the volume down on it just a touch. But
well, I'll tell you a quick story and a thought process. First, the story. A friend of mine and he has a thing called the Article 3 Institute, and they are now attacking some of these bills that are coming through like this. But he was sitting in a hearing. It was an economic development hearing. And I have to be candid with you. Other than keeping regulations low, taxes low, I'm not quite sure what government is supposed to do when it comes to economic development. To me, that is the private sector's job, right? And if you cut your taxes and cut the size of government and get rid of regulation, the private sector can do a much better job than the government will ever do. Anyhow, he's sitting in this hearing, and he starts bringing up to this panel, this committee, about how this particular bill, because of this article and whatnot in the Constitution, is unconstitutional. And he starts talking about these things and illustrating it. And the chairman of the committee, Ann Zur, she's no longer in office, stopped him and said, "Mr. Calzone, it is not the position or the job of this committee to determine what is or is not constitutional. That's what the courts are for."
Oh.
Well, then why did you take an oath to follow the Constitution? If you're not there to determine
that's a wild statement.
Wasn't it? But it happened. Boggled my mind. It actually happened. So and then the other side of that is, we need to get these things done. It's so important that we just have to have that done. We need to do it however we're going to do it. And also, and this is reality, I've heard them say it, I know it happens, folks. If we don't challenge them, they're going to get away with whatever they can get away with.
Sure.
It's like your kids, And if you don't pay attention to what your kids are doing, and you don't punish them every now and again when they're doing something against the rules, they're going to go ahead and get away with whatever they can to. And the General Assembly is no different. I don't think government in general is any different. If they can get away with it, they're going to get away with it. The people, look, Article 1, Section 1 of Missouri's Constitution, all political powers is vested in the people. But if we don't exercise that, we will continue to lose.
That's a good last word.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Nathan.
Appreciate
Thank you for
your time
having me,
very much, and giving us a state of the county and a picture of the maybe the bleak outlook
We'll
in
see.
Jeff City,
Well,
but you never know.
I mean, good things can happen.
Good things certainly can happen.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ike Skelton, for coming on the show. Appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Take on the Lake. Hope it's been informative and interesting for you. Always appreciate show suggestions. So if you want to just shoot me a message on Facebook if you have an idea for a guest or a show topic that you'd like to see. And make sure you subscribe, share the show around, do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. Smash that subscribe button, do all that stuff, and help us grow the show. Until next time, stay anchored, stay curious, and we'll see you soon.